You want to know the truth? The craziest thing I ever saw didn't start with a car chase or gunfire or some top-secret op with alarms blaring no. It started with a joke, one that almost cost a young officer his career, and you'd better believe he'll never forget the look on her face. See, it's not every day someone walks into a locked-down military installation looking like they just got off the Greyhound bus from nowhere. Hair in a ponytail, plain white t-shirt, windbreaker with the zipper stuck halfway, faded jeans, nothing tactical, nothing even remotely official. But the real story, the one that's going to stick with you, begins when this woman, let's call her Agent Monroe, steps up at the front desk with a badge that looks like it could have belonged to her grandfather. "Mom, this ID is either fake or you're a very confused librarian," the young officer says, holding her badge up like he's about to list it on eBay. And behind him, his two buddies crack up, one even muttering, "What is this, a spy movie?" But she doesn't take the bait. She just stands there, hands loose at her sides, not a flicker of emotion crossing her face. And when she speaks, it's barely above a whisper. "Scan it again." You know that tone, right? The kind that's not really asking. The officer rolls his eyes, scanning the badge mostly for laughs, expecting that loud red denial beep. Maybe ready to call security just to show off, because nobody gets in here on a badge that dusty. But then something weird happens. A scanner blinks. Then again. Then every screen in the checkpoint goes dark. I mean, total blackout. Radios start squawking static, phones drop calls, the main monitor flashes blue, then a mess of code, nothing anybody recognizes, and finally, just when you think it's all crashed for good, the entire system reboots to a single black screen with this glowing golden blue seal spinning in the center. No warning, no error, just that emblem. And let me tell you, nobody in that room had ever seen it before. Suddenly, it's dead quiet. Even the jokers in the back aren't snickering anymore. One of them, the guy with the mustache who thought he was so clever, leans back and mutters, "Is that classified?" Like maybe if he asks soft enough, it won't be. The silence, I swear, you could feel it settle on your skin, cold and thick. The officer finally chokes out, "Who are you?" And that's when Monroe steps forward, calm as you please, not an ounce of showmanship, just a quiet kind of power that fills the space. "I'm the one they call when the people above you disappear," she says, and right then, two men in tailored suits just appear behind her. Not from the door, not from any checkpoint, just there, like they walked out of the wall, and you could tell in a second they weren't there to check ID. One of them, older, graying at the temples, gives a nod like he's greeting a general. "Agent Monroe, we've been expecting you." The officer at the desk, the one who thought this was all a prank, he goes white as a sheet. "She's with you?" he stammers, and the other agent, tall, expressionless, says, "No, son, we're with her." And just like that, the entire power structure flips upside down. Everything the officers thought they knew about protocol, about who's in charge, evaporates. This isn't some VIP. This is the architect, the ghost, in the machine. She's not playing by their rules because she wrote the rules. Now, as she walks through the building, it's like the place responds to her presence. Doors unlock a split second before she reaches them. Lights adjust overhead, and you can almost hear the hum of the facility shifting gears. Up in the surveillance booth, a couple of analysts are watching her move through the camera's theory, panicking. "Who is that?" one whispers, the other staring at the badge's emblem on the screen. "That's not an ID. That's a recall key. The kind they use to talk about in rumors, the kind you're not supposed to know exists unless you help build the system from the inside out." Meanwhile, back at the lobby, that young officer who mocked her, he doesn't move, barely breathes, like he's just realized he mouthed off to the person who signs his paycheck. No, scratch that. The person who wrote the entire payroll database. One of the guards finally whispers, "We laughed at her," and nobody answers because, honestly, what do you say when the game's over and you didn't even know you were playing? That kind of power, the kind that doesn't need to shout or flash a weapon or even say much at all, that's not arrogance. That's legacy. It's what happens when someone's been gone so long people forget the debt they owe until she shows up, and everything you thought you controlled turns out to be built by her hands. No one files a report. Nobody even breathes a word of what happened to the higher-ups if you were there. You remember her face, and you never joke about old-timers again. Later, over burnt coffee in the staff lounge, The story gets whispered in fragments how she never flinched, how the system went dark, how the agents followed her like she was Moses parting the Red Sea, and how for a few minutes the whole base froze, waiting to see what she'd do next. And here's the twist, because, every good story's got one of those agents in the hallway. Yeah, turns out he wasn't security at all, but Monroe's protege, the kid she trained 10 years back when he was just a raw recruit, the one who leaked the recall protocol in a failed coup, then disappeared. Everyone thought he'd been canned or transferred, but there he was, back at her side, loyalty tattooed on his face. Suddenly the old stories made sense, the tales about the architect who could shut down any system, the one who never needed a gun to end a standoff. Now, she had her successor by her side, showing everyone in that building that real power doesn't retire. It just changes hands. That day, nobody went home the same. It wasn't about a badge or a title or who had the most stripes on their sleeve. It was about knowing when to keep your mouth shut, when to recognize the weight of history standing in front of you, and when to admit you'd underestimated someone who built the very ground you're standing on. So, next time you're tempted to laugh at someone for looking out of place, remember Agent Monroe. Remember how the room went silent, how the doors opened by themselves, how a single sentence could drop the temperature 10 degrees. And as Monroe disappeared down that long hallway, the monitors flickered back to life, the air returned to normal, and the only thing left behind was a handful of very quiet officers and a single, burning question. Who's really in charge, and do you even want to know? Now, you tell me if you've been there. What would you have done? Would you have laughed with the crowd or listened to your gut? Drop your thoughts below, because in a world built on secrets and legacies, sometimes the only thing standing between you and disaster is the person you least expect. So hit that subscribe button if you got chills, leave a like if you respect real power, and let's hear your take on what justice really looks like. Was Monroe right to walk in silence? Or should she put them in their place out loud? The comments section's yours.